So the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie is out in theaters, and I have seen it. This is going to be a little bit of a delayed review, but yeah, let's talk about the live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on push notifications, but let's get into today's review. Lilo and Stitch is one of the most beloved Disney classics from everyone's childhood, and it is a movie that definitely was one that was like, should this be made into a live action? Well, I honestly feel like that's a question for literally any single Disney movie that's being remade into a live action adaptation. But anyways, Lilo and Stitch is the newest live action adaptation, and I had a fine time with it. I left the theater knowing that the original cartoon is far better and leagues ahead of just everything that happens in the movie. But while I was in the theater watching this movie, I was genuinely having a good time. And it was a cute movie. I think Stitch is still so cute, and I love how they brought back Chris Sanders, the original director and writer of the cartoon Lilo and Stitch movie, to reprise his role as Stitch, so that was really cool. I think the casting for Lilo and Nani were pretty good, but everyone else kind of felt a little bit strange. Peakley had good casting. I just wish they would have kept his drag queen behavior from the first movie. Zach Galifianakis as Jumbo was probably the most disappointing casting of the movie. It really felt like Zach Galifianakis did not want to be there. And I just didn't like how they completely took out the original villain, Captain Gantu, from the original Lilo and Stitch movie and made Jumba the villain of this movie. It just felt so wrong because Jumba is such a big, warm hug of a character that was such a cute part of the first movie, and they decided, no, we're going to make him the villain because Captain Gantu was too challenging to do. And I'm not even joking. The directors of this live action adaptation said that the reason that they didn't do Captain Gantu was because it was just too challenging. Come on, really? Now, a lot of people are upset with the live-action adaptation because they kind of changed the whole entire meaning of the original movie, and, the whole entire main idea was family, or Ohana. Ohana means family, and Ohana still meant family in the live-action adaptation, but by the end of the movie, they did change the ending from the original, which I think a lot of people are going to dislike, but I personally saw it as just, a different, more real approach to a situation because, sometimes people really have to do things that are also good for them, for the betterment of both people. And I think they were really trying to make it a more real situation. But at the end of the day, this really is just a kid's movie, and I don't think it needs to be that deep. I think the idea of how family sticks together is already a very important topic. So didn't know why they had to change that as well, but I didn't particularly dislike that compared to other things in the movie. My biggest complaint is definitely how they changed Jumba. I mean, Jumba was such a cute part of the first movie, and I just don't like how they decided to make him a villain, and a bad villain at that. I don't think Zach Galifianakis... I think Zach Galifianakis did a fine job making it his own character, but I think even Zach Galifianakis said that the accent was too hard. This movie felt like it was just too hard to make it good. I mean, it's not like the movie was bad by any means. I think the movie was still genuinely a fine time, and I had a good time with it in theaters, but it's definitely just does not compare at all to the original movie. One thing that I complained about, and I talked about on my other socials, is how the writers of this movie have absolutely zero credibility when it comes to Hollywood, except for one of them. One of them wrote a R-rated horror film from 2023 that no one has heard of, but apparently it was popular on TikTok. I just was never part of that era of TikTok that found that movie to be interesting. But the other writer, I think his name is Chris Bright, has zero writing credits. So I don't this. It has nothing to do with writers not having had any experience, because I know everyone has to start somewhere, and I completely understand that. And it's amazing that they got to write this movie, but it's so strange. And I know why Disney did it. Less money, and less. They won't have a lot of bad stuff coming their way if they have people talking about how bad the writing is, since they're new writers. But it just doesn't make sense how they hired, people that don't have enough credibility to write a adaptation of one of the most beloved Disney movies. That, to me, does not make sense. They should have just brought Chris Sanders back to helm the movie, to write and direct, because he understood the entire like the entirety of the characters, the you know, native parts of the movie. He understood all of that. Chris Sanders just should have come back and done the movie, and it would have been a much better, more satisfying movie. But besides those things, I mean, will I ever really rewatch the live action adaptation? Probably not. But will I rewatch the original movie? Yes. I mean, if there's you know, a movie that you should watch, it should be the original. I don't think anyone is going to like the live action adaptation more than the original. So, you know, it's good. I think the movie made around like $360 million within its opening weekend, and that's absolutely crazy. So, you know, that's good for Disney, but they're not seeing it because it's good. They're seeing it because it's Lilo and Stitch. You know, it was a fun time. Nothing spectacular, nothing to write home about. You know, it had its cute moments. Stitch is, you know, automatically, you know, the cutest part of the movie. Same with Lilo. Lilo is a very cute, you know, very cute girl, you know, with Stitch. But everything else just felt very like, okay, like, you changed that. It didn't really, you know, didn't make me like the movie anymore. But yeah, so that is my review for Lilo and Stitch live action adaptation. Not a terrible movie, not a great movie. It's just a fine movie. One of the better Disney live action adaptations, because usually when I'm watching a live action adaptation, it's just like, oh my gosh, like every single thing just felt worse and worse and worse and worse than the original. But Lilo and Stitch managed to, you know, keep the charm mostly of the first film, and, you know, I had a good time with it. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on push notifications. But that brings you to the end of this video. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of it. I appreciate every single one of you. But remember, your movie moment is right around the corner. See you in the next video.